G'day. It's time to down your unders. Review and dissection of content from some of the sharpest minds in the game. Hosted by Adam Camilleri. Art of War. Down Under.
G'day everybody and welcome back to another episode of Art of War Down Under. This is the 249th such episode. I am joined by a lovely gentleman straight from the warp, I guess. Either that or he's hanging out in the maelstrom. We're not quite sure. He kind of just floats around, does what he does, but he always seems to play the same Hellbrute in every list that he takes. His name is Russell Tassin. Welcome to the show, mate.
Hey, thank you, Adam. Thanks for having me on.
I was right, yeah. You literally, the Hellbrute is your identity. I've never seen anyone take a Hellbrute.
Oh, it was Abaddon for the longest, but yeah, Hellbrutes tend to find themselves on their list more than they probably should. I have fun with them.
And we are here to review the last of the three detachments that came out recently with the MFM and Slate, that being the Cabal of Chaos. In addition, we're going to have a bit of a chat after we've reviewed the detachment about the state of Chaos Space Marines in totality, because they're in quite an interesting place. You know, in some ways overshadowed by their Legion counterparts, in some way doing some things that are very unique, very spicy in their own regard. But my dude, straight off the cuff, Cabal of Chaos. What's your hot takes on this detachment?
My hot takes is initially I looked at it and I was like, oh, there's some cool things in there. There's advance and charge. There's some cool things to increase the strength and the AP. So I didn't kind of take a hard look at it at first, but after a game with it, man, I actually absolutely fell in love with it, and because it adds some synergy to units that sometimes are a little bit weaker, like a venomcrawler for at neg 1. Yeah. But if he's by a demon prince or he's by a sorcerer, now he's neg 2. You got a stratagem to ignore cover, advance and charge. Yep. Venom crawlers get spicy, especially in the Vastor.
Yeah, exactly right. And I reckon the latest balanced data slate changes where Vastor and the Disco Lords got good is also quite a bit of a buff to the Cabal of Chaos. I love that you mentioned the Venom Crawl. Like a Venom Crawl next to it, like 3 Venom Crawlers with a DP and Vastor seems like a great battery.
Absolutely. And because it just takes that AP and shores it up, and there's stratagems to kind of get past, push the AP and ignore cover, things like that. So there's a lot of workarounds, like take, for example, Possessed, they're outside their dev wound phase. You're looking at neg 1. You can put them with a mop with lance. Now they're charging you. They're wounding big knights on or small knights on 4s with the dev wounds in addition at neg 2. That's how there's a lot of things that make normal units punch up more than they normally do.
Now, this mad lad, Russell, everybody, when I asked him to come on the show, 2 days ago? 2 days ago? 1 day ago? He went out and played a couple of games with Cabal of Chaos. He literally was just like, okay, cool, I got to play a couple of games. And I adore that dedication to some random guy's show. I appreciate that very much there. But the detachment rule reads as thus. This is Empiric Wellspring. Each time a unit from your army makes a Dark Pact, select one of the following abilities. The unit has that ability until the end of the phase. Leaping Warflame. While this unit is within 9 of one or more friendly Heretic Astartes Psycho models, improve the strength characteristic of ranged weapons equipped by models in that unit by 1. And then Monstrous Manifestation. Whilst this unit is within 9 of one or more friendly Heretic Astartes Demon Princes or a Heretic Astartes Demon Prince with wings, improve the armor penetration characteristic of melee weapons equipped by models in your unit by 1. How do you feel about that as a detachment rule, my dude?
At first, like I said, I was kind of like, it's okay. The additional AP and melee is great. But I mean, at first you think Renegade Raiders has a lot of tools and you get that AP and you're on objectives anyway, and you don't have to work for it. But something like there's I know we'll talk about enhancements here in a few, but you can combine a Demon Prince with Infernal Avatar, and now you're looking at Strength 12 Khorne Demon Prince at neg 4, 3 damage.
Yeah. Yep.
That's crazy.
Not bad.
It's not, yeah. And especially now that Demon Princes have the loan op, because they got that in the data slate as well, just like the rest of the Pantheon. So now you can take maybe a Demon Prince on foot, put him next to Cypher, and now you got a double loan off on your expansion objective while you push with other things.
I love that combo. Yeah, Cypher having loan up, giving loan up to the DP being loan up because next to Cypher. That's sick. That's so spicy. Yeah. All right, moving on to the enhancements. I'm just going to do all the reading. Russell's going to give us all the lowdowns because he knows all the stuffs and I know none of the things. Touched by the Warp, Heretic Studies model only is the bearer gains the psychic keyword. Is this any good?
I'm not 100% sure because like when you like look back at the detachment rule, it says you got to be a heretic authority psyker, and that's it. That's a keyword. So even though you're giving yourself the psyker keyword, I'm not sure it actually gives it the heretic authority psyker keyword. So I'm not sure if the way it's written it actually
Yeah.
helps you. So I kind of backed away from that because it's kind of wordy, and I could see that not going your way at a tournament.
I mean, it's clear what the intent is, right? Though it's clear that you're going to make something that doesn't trigger these abilities for the detachment rule, trigger them. So surely there's an intent there that a TO would be like, yeah, I can see the intent. Surely I'll let you get away with it. But I get what you mean. Like, just because I think there's better things to do here in enhancement wise.
Yes. Yes.
The next one is Eye of Zadesh. Accepted studies model only. Models in the bearers unit have Scout 6. Oh, yes, baby.
I absolutely love that on a mop with 20 possessed. So I mean 10 possessed. So yeah, sorry. You like
In
that?
your dreams,
Yes. Well, I mean,
dreams, we still got 20 meds.
well, sometimes in the warp of the maelstrom, you give yourself an extra 10 possessed. So no, but I do like a mop with that on possessed because now you got a unit that's moving 9 inches. You can advance your charge with one of the stratagems from the detachment. So you have a unit that can really reach out and touch somebody because the mop gives him +1 to advance your charge, and he has
Yes.
the heretic Astartes psyker keyword and a really cool precision weapon we can talk about a little bit later.
So he's given that unit the full package. The other one I thought of was ACDC unit, of course, but they aren't as well rounded. Like they don't get the detachment rule from their characters and et cetera, et cetera. Like they're not a one unit, one size fits all like the possessed and the mop is. All right. Next up, Mind Blade. Psycho model only. Melee weapons equipped by the models in the bearers unit have Lance. This is freaking excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you can go back and you can look at like a mop or putting that on another character, but adding it to chosen or again another 10 possessed. So like the game I ran today, I ran 2 units of possessed, one with scout, one with lance, and that's where my 20 possessed thing came in. So I had 2 master possessions and 20 possessed, and they were absolutely amazing.
The other one I thought of is like everyone's always talking about their one. So Creations of Bile has been around for a long time in a lot of Renegade Raiders as well. Some pack-bound zealots also, people are taking their one big brick of Chosen. And usually, in Creations of Bile, that's your Bile unit. Usually they've got a Chaos Lord. But now, actually, there's an argument that just chucking a Sorcerer in there does more for those Chosen.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Because that Strength 5 is a bit of a rough breakpoint in the game. So, yeah. Anyway,
it is, and then like the regular sorcerer gives them -1 to hit, and
exactly.
So there's a whole bunch of fun stuff like that sorcerers that you don't normally consider would definitely play well with chosen or like a mop with possessed.
Yeah. All right. Infernal Avatar is the last one. Heretic Studies Demon Prince or Demon Prince with Wings model only. Improve the strength of melee weapons equipped by the bearer by 2 and improve the AP characteristic of those weapons by 1. So you go to strength 10, AP 3 damage?
Yes. And then like if you put it on a Corn Demon Prince, you're looking at strength 12. And because of the detachment rule, when you're in melee, you're pushing an additional AP from the detachment rule, the second part of it.
Correct.
The Demon Prince will give himself an additional AP.
So it'd be 12, 4, 3. Yeah.
12, 4, 3.
Woohoo! I mean, I actually don't think I actually don't think it's needed. I don't think it's necessary. You're kind of just fine as you are. But rank these enhancements in order priority for you. Like, what do you see as the auto include, then the next best, and the next best?
Well, my favorite one is the one that gives Lance because that can go on so many different models that attach to units. Like I really like possess with Lance and an additional AP because it takes away one of their biggest weaknesses and shores it up. I mean, when you can give a unit like that Lance, now you're winning big models on 4s, and then you're if you got a Demon Prince nearby, you're at -2, and all of a sudden something that couldn't barely hurt a knight before in this new knight meta might be able to pick up 2 2 small knights at one time with
Yeah,
a
you're
unit of
exactly right.
possess and a mob.
Yep. Next best is the scout, I'm assuming,
Yes. Yes.
and then you take the demon prince with wings if you got the points, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's my estimation as well. Yeah, the freaking lance one. It is so rare to see. Like, I mean, because this is giving it to the character as well that's taking it. It's very rare to see like +1 to wound on the charge in an enhancement for bearer and unit. It's very rare, very powerful.
Yeah, it's very powerful, especially on something that sometimes has a hard time punching up.
Yeah. All right. Baleful Blessing is the first of the stratagems. 1 CP. It's in any phase. Just after a heretic started unit from your army has a mortal wound allocated to it. Till the end of the phase, you get a 5 up against mortal wounds. Yeah, just what it is, mate. But not too bad. I mean, it's any phase at least, so it does help you into things like tank shocks because you can, do it in the charge phase. You feel good about this strat?
It's niche. I think there's some times where you're going to get break points where somebody's going to have that grenade and then a charge and try to kill something like Bashor, and all of a sudden you say, hey, don't forget I have a 5 of Feel No Pain, and then all of a sudden it might change the entire math on someone's turn, just having that out there available to you.
100%. No Rest in Death is up next for 1 CP. It's in your movement phase. 1 Heretic Astartes unit from your army within 9 of a Heretic Astartes Psyker. Demon Prince with wings. 1 model in your unit regains up to D3 + 1 lost wounds. If a unit has the battle line keyword, you can return D3 destroyed models, excluding characters, with their full wounds remaining instead. So you can just get like 3 legionaries back for 1 CP. That's pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's pretty good, but the only downfall of this stratagem is it's in the movement phase. So unlike a lot of stratagems where you can bring models back that happen in the command phase, you're not really still in primary, but you can gain some extra movement, and on a unit like Legionnaires, that's pretty clutch.
Yeah, I quite like it, but yeah, you're right. They've made an obvious choice there to dodge the most powerful things you could do with this, which does take a bit off the top, I think. All right. Mutations Curse for 1 CP. It's in your shooting phase. 1 Heretic Astartes Psyker unit from your army. Select 1 visible enemy unit within 12 of your unit. Roll 1 D6 on a 1. That enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. 2 to 4, they suffer D3 mortal wounds. 5 to 6, they suffer 2 D3 mortal wounds. So it is a 1 CP weird grenade, essentially.
Yes. Yeah? Yes. So the one thing I do like about this, and I'm stick on the mob, because I absolutely fell in love with the mob on this one.
I'm getting the theme here, mate.
Yeah. No. So the mob has a precision weapon, right?
Yep.
And his hazard check is -3. So now, because he's unit, you're looking at a -4 precision weapon, and on the hazard roll, it's 3+. So for example, say you're even with a unit of possess, you're trying to finish something or smash something out. Here's a perfect way to finish off an Archon if your precision attacks don't work. So it's a backup plan, and there's no sequencing here. So it says in your shooting phase, so you can kind of wait till the end of your shooting phase and say, I really need to finish that model and pop the CP, and yeah.
And that's what I like about it compared to Grenade, because Grenade, you have to do it before you shoot with that unit. Here, you get to see everything else unfold and then just throw the CP as a finisher. So I quite like this one.
And at 12 inches, too, so that really helps get that reach out there.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Soul Seekers is up next for 1 CP. It's in your shooting phase. 1 Heretic Astartes unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase. Until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit have ignores cover. 1 CP ignores cover. What a banger.
Yeah, it's amazing when you attach it or attach it to a venomcrawler that's close to a psyker. So now you're -2, ignoring cover. Now you've got a venomcrawler that's actually hurting tough targets at range.
Yep. I think Predator would be the next best one as well. Yeah, Predator Destructor.
Oh, absolutely, Predator Destructor. Even Forge Fiends when somebody has armor, contempt, and cover.
Well, I was about to say, does this make the Gatling, so the autocannon Forge Fiend bearable, going to AP2 ignores cover?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. And especially when you have a lot of units out there like Zangors, even those big Berserker bricks where now you're lighting, 12 shots up, and plus he's still an ectoplasma mouth gun. So you can still really push things. And I did run a Gatling cannon Forge Fiend over the weekend, and I really relied on the undivided strat to get those dev wounds. But if I had this, then this would have made those Gatling cannons go a lot further.
Because it's 6 shots each, right? Like 6 shots at 812, and then they'd go to 822 ignores cover. The problem is, though, against the bigger units, the ectoplasmic cannon actually has more shots because it's D3 plus blast. So, it always annoyed me how good D3 blast is. All right. Question: only other unit. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. Lord of Skulls. Is that still a thing in CSM?
Oh man, I want it to be. I was hoping when I saw all those night points that the Lord of Skulls would see the same type of reduction at 450. Yeah, no, I definitely think if you wanted to go heavier on the list and kind of push with Bastor, there's a lot of different profiles and breakpoints for the meta that you could, especially maybe if you even threw a Warpsmith in there, but you could really lean into that lone op part of this list.
Well, I'm taken now. I'm taken by the warp. That Lord of Skulls is actually looking pretty good. Ignores cover, plus strength, plus AP. Freaking, giving a feel no pain against mortals. Okay, all right, stop. All right, I gotta stop. You can regen it for D3 plus 1 lost wounds here. It doesn't say that one has to be like a fleshy unit. You can heal vehicles with this. Then you have a Wolfsmith to heal it again. Okay.
Yeah, you're looking at 2d3 plus 1/1. Oh yeah.
Oh, all right. We're cooking.
We're cooking, especially on that GW terrain, the Lord of Skulls, D13.
Yeah, dude. Yep, it looks good. Next up is Unholy Haste for 1 CP. Your charge phase, 1 Heretic Astartes unit from your army hasn't been selected to charge. You can charge if you advanced. Absolutely. Home run.
I love this stratagem. And why? Because unlike the one earlier where you bring the models back, it happens in the wrong phase you want it to. This one happens in the phase you want it to, because a lot of times, most stratagems where you advance and charge, you got to pay for it in the movement. And sometimes you wish you had that CP back in the shooting phase. Here's one that you get to do your wait till the charge phase to whether you need it or not. So I really like that a lot. It pairs well a lot with the Demon Prince on foot, the Master Possession, who gives you +1 to advance and charge. Even if you're trying to get that slow Lord of Skulls around buildings, things like that, you get him into combat.
Well, he can't advance and charge. He's infantry only, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. All right, last one is Shroud of Chaos. 1 CP. Start your opponent's shooting phase. 1 Heretic Astartes Psyker, Demon Prince with wings. And to the end of the phase, your unit has the following ability: Shroud of Chaos Aura. Models in a friendly Heretic Astartes unit within 6 of this model have the stealth ability. So it's 1 CP mass pop smoke, essentially. And I think this is a banger, and I wish G-Dub would do more strats like this. I love these, like 1 CP, you get an aura ability. I think like every second detachment should have one of these like abilities in it. How do you feel about this one?
I really like this one a lot because, you kind of talk about some of these units that we were talking about earlier, that they have weaknesses. Even like your Lord of Skulls, now you're looking at a 2+ save and cover, -1 to hit.
Yep.
And then, or possess, -1 to hit with cover always. Or, you got a lot of options that way to really say, I'm going to mess up your turn by creating this whole area over here, making it harder to kill me.
100% agree, dude. And especially when you've got because I assume this is a front-loaded, back-loaded combined arms, as in there's nothing really in between. You just got beefy, savage melee units and a backboard anvil of Daka, 3 or 4 battle tanks with some buffing squads. And because of that, one of those is always going to be getting mileage out of stealth and cover, right? And I just think it's ace. In addition, there's a bunch of freaking matchups out there. This is fantastic against, not as much against Tau anymore, but against Guard, this is awesome. Votan, this is awesome. Other Astartes, this is awesome. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of this strat.
Well, even something like the Talon's Emperor's Children thing, if you get caught on open ground and you don't want to get all those -1, 2 damage shots, being able to give yourself cover, I mean, it's going to help you with it because they get +1 to hit too, but a lot of things like that, or intercessors, you got 20 shots at -1.
Yeah.
It just fixes it.
Hoop-de-doo. Love it. All right, that is the end of the detachment. So it's time to talk about rankings and ratings. Out of 10, my dude, as a Chaos Space Marine player, and speaking on behalf of all Chaos Space Marine players, as we do, how happy are you with this detachment?
If I were going to rank this detachment on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably go somewhere around 6 or 7. There's a lot of fun tools in there. The stratagems are amazing. If you had enough CP, I would rank it an 8 or 9, but that's the hard part is where do you spend these command points at when you still have things like heroic intervention and interrupt that you want to save
Interrupts.
command points for.
Correct. That I actually have exactly the same issues with this. I want to spend 3 CP a turn in this detachment. You know, I want to try and heal. I want to, of course, I want to advance and charge and turn on the stealth every turn, and I want to turn on ignores cover every turn. Every turn, I want to spend at least 2 out of these things, and then the flex CP of healing and doing the pseudo grenade and stuff like that are things I'd want to do 2 or 3 times a game. And so, where the hell am I getting all this CP from? Because these are good strats.
And especially in chapter approved, I think the more I play the new chapter approved, I'm finding that I'm cycling less cards at the end of the turn because there's so many cards that aren't dead draws anymore, like engage on all fronts, or even like mark for death because they got that where you can select your own target for 2 points. So I feel like you have less CP to work with now unless you have something that's generating CP in your army.
Yeah, correct. I'm also of that opinion. That's like a little key in for people at home. People used to be like, there's not that big a deal to take the guy that gives you a CP every turn because you can just cycle to get that CP. Well, now you don't. Now you actually don't cycle. You're more than happy to give yourself the option to just slap down and grab the 1 or 2 points on engage on all fronts rather than automatically cycling it because you're not going to get the 3 or 4.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, you're trying to dodge challenger cards and things like that as well. So it's actually a bit of a conundrum being doing too well.
It really is. So kind of what I was thinking is like right now there is some good options for that combined arms detachment where you have your really hard hitting melee units and then your hard shooting units for CSM. There's a couple really good units with the improvements to Vastor and Demon Princes, and it just helps. It helps the whole army as a whole. So when you start looking at it, you go, am I going to spend, do I want a better army rule? Something like not have to working so hard to get the extra AP and things like that. Like Renegade Raiders has a scout, and things like that. So, or if you wanted to really ramp up, the damage on this combined arms attachment, you might even look at Veterans of the Long War and give yourself an oath.
Yes. Fair. All right, this detachment-wise, with the best players, of Chaos Space Marines, much akin to yourself, how high can people with this detachment climb in the tier list, from S tier down to D tier?
I think the top CSM players can definitely get some A tier level action with this. Somebody like maybe Sasha, I could see doing some really incredibly smart things with this and maybe reaching an S tier level.
Ooh, nice. I do think it's definitely an A-tier detachment. And it's just an interesting one because I'm not quite sure the meta... So we're going to transition from this point talking about the internal Chaos Space Marine meta because they're at the point now where there's such a glut of detachments that they can kind of pick their poison and pick the detachment for the meta that they're in. And so I think this one falls somewhere in between a bunch of other detachments, which I think is quite interesting for it. But this detachment doesn't declare itself as denotably different as an all-comers detachment than various others. Is that correct to say, you think?
Yeah, I'd definitely agree with that. So the whole time I was looking at this combined arms thing and lessons learned from over the weekend, I was like, man, this works great with this, but I can imagine it with veterans or renegades.
Yeah, so you got 10 detachments now. So we're just going to fully transition into this chat. So you have Cabal of Chaos, Chaos Cult, Creations of Bile, Deceptors, Dread Talons, Fellhammer, Pact Bound, Renegade Raiders, Soulforged Warpack, and Veterans of the freaking Long War. As far as I can tell, Cabal of Chaos, Pact Bound Zealous, Renegade Raiders, Veterans of the Long War, these are your 4 all-comers. These are your 4 just build a good list and things are going to be okay lists. Then you have, of course, the extremes, Chaos Cult on the extremes of the numerosity, Dread Talons on the janky side, Feldhammer on the, pseudo Custodes you're trying to play or pseudo Death Guard you're trying to play. And then Soulforged Wardpack is trying to, be all the vehicles all the time. Have I missed any?
I think you nailed it on the head.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, there's a lot of things competing for the same slot. Where does Cabal of Chaos fall into this pack of 10?
That's pack of 10. I'd say in the top 40% of 10. So maybe number 4 or 5.
Number 4 or 5. Fair.
Yeah, because I really like veterans. I really like creations. I really like Renegade Raiders and Pack Bound. And it's hard to get away from those detachment rules and some of the stratagems that they go to gain, an extra strength or AP that you kind of gotta. It's kind of this is a similar detachment to like when you're making your best with Emperor's Children, right? So if you can make the stars align, you could really make this detachment have some good synergies and ramp up. But if things start going wrong or people start imposing their will on you, things could fall apart, and you're gonna wish you had one of these other detachments where you didn't have to try so hard for that extra AP, or
Yeah.
maybe get some rerolls
Yeah.
to make Vashtor really slam.
I 100% agree. And funnily enough, that's been a tale that I've heard said from Chaos Space Marine players the entire edition. They feel like they can't dig up. If they're in a poor situation, it's pretty much only going to stay that way. Do you find that to be the case?
Yeah, no, that's when I play team events, because I really love playing CSM. But when I go to team events, every time I play CSM, I always feel like I have to be protected from a faction or two. Like,
Yeah,
for example, CSM right now against the new Thousand Suns Zangor detachment, you can really get boxed in, especially when you start talking about Disco Lords and Forge Fiends, and they're deep striking 6 inches away from you, and then Temporal Surgeon on your objective and blocking you in. So
yeah, totally agree. All right, so the identity of creation of Chaos Space Marines has, for probably the last, since Christmas, pretty much been mostly defined by Creations of Bile. Do you still think they're the number one detachment in Chaos Space Marines?
no, I think they're still a very strong option, and I think people are going to perform very well with it. But what this does is it allows you to give you a little bit of flavor of play. Because right now, if you're more a shooting player, you start thinking, well, CSM doesn't have that much to offer for me. But now I think with some of these buffs, you really it shores up some of those weaknesses, so where you can really start to lean into things like Forge Fiends or Predators or Vindicators, where it doesn't feel so bad. Because I'm telling you, Vashtor is incredible. He's one of the best models in the game.
For his points, he's busted. He's actually busted. We were talking about it in the green room. So he's 25 points less than an Emperor's Children Demon Prince. And he's somewhere between a Demon Prince and a Primarch in power on his data sheet. He's absolutely nuts. If I was playing
he's 170. Yeah, I mean, he's 175 points. And, Adam, I really love Abaddon. And looking at, he's 280 points, 105 points more than Vashtor, and Vashtor is almost better in every aspect.
Correct. Yep, correct. Apart from not being able to lead a unit, that's literally it. That's literally the only point of distinction. Am I going to pay 105 points to lead a unit? No. No, I'm not, mate.
No. And especially with Vashtor getting loan out when he's next to a demon engine.
Correct.
The venomcrawlers and the Forge Fiends just protect him better than a squad of Chosen or Terminators could ever do for Abaddon.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so into the wider meta talk of Chaos Space Marines, I have seen a notable decline in Creations of Bile as being the taken, army of choice. Seeing a lot more pact-bound zealots at the moment. Why do you think that would be, brother?
I think some of that is because of people are already kind of starting to try to figure out how am I going to get geared towards this night meta, because Creations of Bile they don't have a lot of counters. Now, but when you start talking about GW terrain against, 5 or 6 big knights, Creations of Bile can really get picked up way too fast on something like that. So having options to work the edges and start weakening knights before you start slamming into them is going to go a long way. I ultimately think that's why it is.
The other one I thought was Death Guard. I thought Creations of Bile just has a horrific Death Guard matchup. The bloat drones with, all that blast, D6 plus 2 blast, 10 AP2 equals cover 3, plus Preds, plus the Terminators, plus all the anti-infantry, plus everything else, all the negs and the debuffs. I just thought, Death Guard was a horrific matchup for Creations of Bile. That's an army with extreme AP versus, or the Possessed that will, nowhere near enough AP to get through all the Death Shroud and stuff. So that was my take as well, in addition to the Knights. Would that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, yeah, so it's not that Creations Bile got worse. It's just the meta changed with Death Guard and Chaos Knights and now Imperial Knights. They're not going to trade like they were. But Creations of Bile on WTC terrain, I still think is very viable. So, when you go to a team event and you're able to get the heavy tables and avoid those bad matchups, I think Creations of Bile may still be your better team list, where some of these combined arms are be better for singles on more open tables and so forth.
Yeah. I agree, mate. All right, so Pact Bound Zealot. So that's the one I've been seeing taken quite a bit. In fact, you took it last weekend to an event where you did pretty dang well with it. Why'd you take Pact Bound for that over, say, Renegade Raiders, Veterans of the Long War?
Mainly because I know Forge Fiends sometimes have a problem with shots, especially when you're shooting those tough targets where, 3D3 shots and all of a sudden you've got 3 shots and you miss 1 or 2, or you haven't done any output. So like if you've got that, maybe a Halberd and a Pack Bound, it kind of makes up for some of that swinginess. It doesn't completely make up for it, but it definitely puts the threat out there that I could really put out a whole bunch of damage. So
how do you how do you evaluate the all comers detachments against each other? Like, what do you see as better for Pact Bound? What do you see as better for Renegade? What do you see as better for Veterans? What do you see as better for Cabal?
For Cabal, I think, and for creations, I really like Master Possessions because they do have that precision weapon. And in the current meta with Thousand Suns being out there, being able to precision out a character out of a weapon, or all those psychers that are in Eldar, is you can activate that dead wound thing and just pick a psyker right out of one of those units. So that's great. So Renegade and Pack Bound both give you options to really kind of help you with those type of things. Where these more combined arms attachments, you can look at Pack Bound for helping Forge Fiends or even helping your Sinesh units, because even the Lord Discos, even though they got a glow up, they're still on their main attacks are only 5 attacks. So if you go out there with Sinesh and Pack Bound, it really helps make up for rolling those ones. Or if you need to get those couple extra attacks, having access to crit hits on 5 is pretty nice.
Hell yeah. And thank you very much for that explanation. So for the upcoming meta, for the Knights and essentially Legions, Chaos Legions, because that's one of the things I'm seeing right now. Like, I mean, why would I, and maybe you can speak to this, but there's a lot of Chaos Space Marine players that I've spoken to recently being like, well, I'm a Chaos Space Marine player, but I play all of Chaos. So why would I play Chaos Space Marine right now when I could play the fit for purpose spiciness in my Legion of choice? I can play the World Eaters for the melee matchups, or for the melee metas. I can play the T-Suns for the bit of for the shooting metas, and I can play the Death Guard for the brawling
whatever
metas. Yeah, and every meta because they're busted. But yeah, well, T-Suns are busted as well. But what do you say to that?
I think there's ultimately, sometimes everybody's got their play styles, and there might be some things still out there for CSM that really help with people's play styles. Like if you like to move a shooting castle, Renegade Raiders, I still think is going to outperform Death Guard, because being able to push the castle out and get places fast, and then have those other things that go well. Because take Death Shroud, for example. They're amazing until you run into something like Infiltrators,
Fair.
And so I think there's a lot of play style and archetypes that still are, and there's a lot of people that just love CSM, period, right? So like, for example, if I'm going to a singles event, I'm choosing between all those, I'm choosing CSM because I love them. Although I do have all 4 of the other armies.
Ha! Called it. Knew it.
I know. My curio cabinet at home is organized by Chaos God. The top 2 shelves are 1 Chaos God. The mid is, and then down the center it's all undivided, and on the bottom is all my Chaos Knights. So I can pull them off the shelf and play whichever one. I love playing Chaos.
Little did I know when I was describing the Chaos Space Marine mates that I have here, I was literally also describing you. It's funnily enough that there's a Chaos player archetype. I should discuss this. I should do a rankings list on the Warhammer player archetypes out there, because there are many, and it's hilarious. All right, Renegade Raiders was something that was met with a huge amount of hype when Emperor's Children came out, and we realized that the new Noise Marines go into Renegade Raiders. I have yet to see that take off in the Chaos Space Marine community. Is that actually a thing, or is it being determined to be a bit of a meme, or not as good as first expected?
Honestly, them going to 145 points, I think hurt them, because by the time they actually got access to them, once the codex became available for use at most tournaments, that 145 points was probably not far behind. And then, like, if you're going to put them in Pack Bound, right, you put them in the wrong Rhino because you want them in Nurgle or Zeech. So
correct.
You look at them at Renegade Raiders, I think there's definitely play there. But what you're doing is you're saying, I'm going to take a Rhino, I'm going to put 2 guys, 245 or 145 point unit in there to get 4 shots, Well, at that point, you're spending more than if you just put a predator out there and you add last cannons to those 3 damage shots. So I think when you start mapping it out, yeah, I do think it has some really cool play and it's fun, especially if you got those models. But I think there's other options that are just are as cheap. I mean, 145 points for a predator or 145 points for six
Just the
noise.
noise marines. Yeah, just the noise marines, not even the rhino. Yeah.
Not even the rhino. Yep.
That was my estimation. My estimation was like, this is something that seems busted on paper. And then when you go through the terms and conditions of actually putting it into your army, you're like, oh, this actually is a bit more XY than I wanted it to be. I still think it's good. I still think it's great. In saying the same thing, is there any play for, say Plague Marines or Rubrics to make their way into CSM lists?
Definitely yes to both. I like the Plague Marines, the T5 and the power weapon, especially if you're doing it in an attachment where you can reroll hits. That's a lot of power weapon attacks, especially. And then the Thousand Suns having something to throw out to a center objective if you're playing against something like Gene Stealer Cult. That's awesome. Nobody wants to deep 6 inches away from River Marines or so forth. But again, you start like looking at Legionnaire data sheets and even the Nemesis Claw data sheet. You kind of start looking at, if I'm going to invest in infantry, which infantry am I going to invest in, and get all the rules with it? That makes a little bit of a difference. Rubrics, so much if you're running flamers, you don't need dark for flamers. Yeah,
fair. I do like the idea of rubrics, and they were a thing. They were a heavy thing about 6 months ago, taken enormously in Renegade Raid lists. All right, are there any fringe Chaos Space Marine builds that are on the rise in your opinion? Because you could say Croesus of Bile was an extreme skew of toughness 6/3 wound chassis, just taken as many as you freaking could, and then a bunch of different trading units, and usually one brick are chosen. Are there any other extreme builds on the rise or skews for people to watch out for?
I don't necessarily think so, but I think what Bashur does, that what he brings to a list, completely changes the map on a lot of things. You have literally a reliable unit that you can hide next to something and get the loan off, or you can rapid ingress and deep strike him. He moves 12 inches and it's like a truck. And if you're in, pack bound, you could reroll wounds because he's undivided. If you're in Renegade Raiders, you got a -4 3 damage weapon. If you're with the Cabal Detachment, if you're close enough to something, you're getting extra AP and shooting with your anti-vehicle flamer, or in melee, you're rocking it. So now that's 8/2/2 on his sweep. That's 12 attacks with dead wounds. And so that are anti-vehicle 4+. Yeah. So in other words, I think as people start to play with Bashur, they're going to see a lot of synergies that maybe you didn't think of. Like, for example, when I was making the list to play test for this podcast, I was like, what am I going to do with these 120 points? I was like, man, I wish I had 5 more points for maybe 5 shows. And I said, you know what? If I take a Venomcrawler, throw them in the list, that gives me an extra option for loan off. That's fast, maybe push out to a center objective early. And then I turned out with that detachment, the output went way up because now a Venomcrawler next to Bashur and the Cabal Detachment, that's strength 9 instead of strength 6 in shooting.
Yeah, it goes to strength freaking 9. It gains 50% more power, 50% more strength in detachment. So, it's actually kind of wild.
So I think the more people go back, look at all the data sheets with some of these things in mind, I think there's going to be some data sheets that people have said, I don't want that anymore, that may actually be a lot better. Like for Obliterators, you start looking at maybe not their top profile, but you look at their mid profile. Yeah. Now you're adding AP and being able to ignore cover. All of a sudden, those things become a lot more viable when you talk about dark packs and things like that.
Yeah, I was surprised you didn't mention a Blitz because I thought they were one that was a little bit cheeky at the moment. So we've mentioned Astartes being like the chassis. The apart from Knights, the game is like Astartes all the way. Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Ultras on the Loyalist side, and then World Eaters, Death Guard, T-Suns on the Chaos side. So there's 6 very, very freaking takeable, very, very freaking good Astartes chassis. Man, that Ruinous Salvo from the Blitz looks pretty freaking good. 1 CP ignores cover on that, plus all the strength, plus all the extras, like D6 shots each at 8/2/2. Looks pretty hot.
Yeah, because yes, exactly. Because I mean, even there, like you talk about shooting 2 Obliterators with that profile into Death Shroud, it gets less dicey than if you're trying to put the 4 damage one into them, because it's only D3 and so.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely, absolutely right. Well, all right, my dude, we are going to wrap things up over on this part one. We're going to go over to part two, guys, which you can join and find us over at Patreon. We're going to talk about the Chaos Cabal of Chaos lists that we think are conceptually good, what they've got going for them into the meta. We're going to answer a bunch of patron questions and talk a bit more about Chaos Space Marines. Russell, I did not give you an opportunity to plug your wares at the start, mate. You doing any coaching, anything of that description?
I am doing coaching with Art of War. You can find my page on the Art of War website for coaching, and that's about it for right now with me.
Freaking tastic, dude. What's your next event?
My next event is actually going to be NATC with Art of War. We're doing the 8-man. Jack's our team captain for that event. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Heaven help everyone else signed up to that event. That's going to be disgusting.
And then we're going to go to Hee Haw, or I'm going to go to Hee Haw the following week in Texas. It's a really small event, and actually, I'm going to plug them. They were my absolute favorite event last year, and it was only like a 50-person GT at a small hotel. It just had one of those small GT feels where the entire GT was hanging out at the pool Saturday night, hanging out, and I mean, it was just a great community feel. So yeah, NATC, and then the following week I'll be in Killeen, Texas at Hee Haw, and that's just an amazing event. So there's openings for that one. I would snag it up because it's just a great 40K event.
Beautiful. On that note, we are out of here. Thank you so much again for joining us. Russell, come join us over on part 2 at Patreon. Otherwise, take care and enjoy some of that Cabal of Chaos. Bye, guys.
We are lost.